There have been some assumptions, especially when taking a look at retention, that students of the pledge are the most vulnerable, right, or at risk. And when we took a look at our fall to spring retention, that absolutely was not the case. We retained those students fall to spring at 92%.
This episode is a great example of how mission-driven initiatives can also become powerful enrollment marketing strategies. Roosevelt University has seen first-year enrollment grow by 30% over the last 2 years, and one initiative that's getting a lot of attention is the Roosevelt Pledge, a program that guarantees tuition-free education for qualifying Illinois students. For enrollment marketers, that raises some interesting questions. How do you market a promise like this clearly? How do you position it in a crowded higher ed market? And what role can affordability guarantees play in enrollment growth? To talk us through all of these questions, I'm joined by Nicole Barron, Senior Vice President for Enrollment and Management at Roosevelt University. Nicole, welcome to the application.
Well, thanks for having me, Allison. It's great to be here.
Let's start with the basics, just so everyone knows what we're talking about and we get a baseline. What is the Roosevelt Pledge and what role has it played in your recent enrollment growth?
The Roosevelt Pledge is a program for Illinois residents who have graduated high school from a high school in the United States, who have GPAs of 2.25 and above and reside in households with an annual income of $50,000 or below.
And what impact are you seeing on your enrollment growth? Applications yield. I think it's so interesting that I know you've said that you also have been able to increase net tuition revenue and lower the discount rate, which sounds like you shouldn't be able to when you're offering an affordability guarantee like this, right?
Right.
It sounds counterintuitive. How does that work?
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable, quite frankly. So to go back a few years, in the fall of 23, we initiated a tuition, what I call reset or tuition price change. So we brought our tuition rates down from around 32 annual at the time to 20,000.
Okay.
And we broadly promoted that as an affordability message. That was how it
And
was
this was
positioned.
on the sticker price, Nicole?
Yes,
Yes,
the
on the
sticker
sticker.
price, the sticker price. That is what ultimately evolved into the Roosevelt Pledge. We, taking a very close look at the clearinghouse data, we could see pretty clearly where some of our competitors were having an edge around us. We also, at that time, knew through our financial aid modeling that if we were to maximize Pell Grants, take a look at our Illinois Monetary Assistance Program, and then working with our financial aid optimization team, going back to your earlier question, well, we realized that we could repackage the tuition reset as the Roosevelt Pledge, a guaranteed free tuition program. We soft launched that in 2024, and almost immediately, Allison, to your point, we saw applications with that specific consumer index group spike. And now for the past 2 years in a row, our applications, the Roosevelt Pledge group makes up almost 40% of our application pool.
Wow.
And you mentioned at the top of the podcast, at the start of last fall, it was 30% of our first year enrolling class. And we're trending that way again as we move to fall of 26. So it's a very popular program, as you could imagine. We're very proud of it because it speaks directly to our mission as a social justice institution, as an access institution. We are very much serving the primarily students of the greater Chicagoland area through that program.
Really what it did was allow you to package financial aid up front in a way that translated for that audience so that they knew that they could afford Roosevelt in the first place rather than sort of waiting to get the financial aid to understand whether or not they could.
Yeah, exactly. Very much. It was an exercise in market positioning, right? So instead of initially rolling out as a broad affordability campaign, right? We very much transformed that due to the creative work of our marketing team into the Roosevelt Pledge program, a guaranteed promise of free tuition if you meet these specific qualifiers. And the caveat too, I mentioned at the front, the 2.25 GPA, that is new for this fall. And it ties into some data. I've been working very closely with our chief retention officer, with institutional research, just taking a look, obviously, at retention rates and wanting to ensure that when we're bringing these students in, that they're set up as best we can for academic success, because we want these students to persist, especially now. So much focus, right, with the federal government, emphasis on outcomes, on jobs, good career placements. We want to do everything we can to ensure our students persist.
Yeah, because you're not just trying to enroll them, you're trying to make sure they graduate.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I really love this idea because one of my favorite things, and if anyone from my team is listening to this particular episode, they're going to start laughing right now, is one of my favorite things is to repackage things that we're already doing. And sometimes I use a different word than things, which is what they'll be laughing about right now. I don't mean it facetiously. I mean it in a way that makes it make sense for the audience, because so much about higher ed doesn't make sense to someone who's not in the club of higher ed. So how do we repackage the things that we're doing really well in a way that resonates with our audience? So we do something a little bit similar. We do a scholarship guarantee at Siena. They
Yes.
get at least $64,000 in scholarships when you're over your 4 years to attend Siena. And it has been our most successful marketing campaign because it gets at the thing that they're worried about the most, the
Yes.
costs, right?
Yes.
And it kind of just lets them know they're not going to be paying the larger sticker price that they're seeing on the website,
Right.
and until we get out of this insanity of how we do financial aid across America with the discounting and the scholarships and all of that, it works to sort of
absolutely
bridge that
does.
knowledge gap. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes we do tend to overcomplicate things, right? And in higher ed. But to that point, we also, have been very conscientious and strategic in our messaging to students about full cost transparency. And you could see it's very confusing to students who get offers from one university with a big scholarship offer. And then we were coming out with not nearly as large of a scholarship offer, right? But students have a misperception about that. If they see, right, a big scholarship dollar, but then not a big scholarship offer, they get confused as to what is really the bottom line, the cost of attendance.
They
And
totally do. Yeah. I see financial aid packages all of the time where another school has a higher merit scholarship for the student. The student is coming to us and saying, well, X school gave me $10,000 more. But then when you look at the net cost, Siena's net cost is still lower than this other example. And it does. And I do think that there's a consumer behavior piece of this, that they want that reward. That merit scholarship. There's something on mentally in a way
right.
that it does for students too. So it's a stupid game that we're all playing. So I just love when schools are able to find a way like you have to overcome that.
Yes, yes, yeah. There is an element of prestige when it comes to scholarshiping and awards, especially with family and parents. One of the other ways we leveraged the pledge or some of our financial aid modeling is to be able to attract students who would be interested in our honors program, right? Students who typically have, in our case, it's usually a 3.0 and above, but to really spend time separate from the pledge, although many of our pledge students do qualify for honors. So that's actually another important point. Speaking of GPA and the 2.25, there have been some assumptions, especially when taking a look at retention, that students of the pledge are the most vulnerable, right, or at risk. And when we took a look at our fall to spring retention, that absolutely was not the case. We retained those students fall to spring at 92%. So
Wow.
they're highly, I mean, it's a small cohort. So we're talking 286 at the start of fall,
That's
but
still great.
yes, yes. So I felt really good about that. And it was nice to kind of set the record straight with
Yeah.
stakeholders, right? That we're making a really good investment in these students. And we're really contributing in a large way to their social mobility.
I want to ask you a question about internal stakeholders in just a second, but I wonder if the reason those students are retaining so well are because you've opened the door probably more early on to a connection with Roosevelt that they are then retaining because the longer relationship and the deeper relationship that we build with students through the entire right recruitment cycle. So I
Yes,
wonder if there's
yes.
something too, they felt more connected early on before they actually enrolled and they have proceeded really well. So sometimes things that people think are marketing strategies, right? Or something like that can actually be retention strategies. But I have been picturing what some of the internal conversations had to be like when this was being pitched, right? Because things like that, there's going to be this idea that, oh, we're going to end up with a bunch of students who won't retain or they won't perform well. Can you tell me a little bit about what were the conversations like that you had to get to so you could all get to yes on the Roosevelt Pledge?
Yeah, well, fortunately, we work with really great consultants for financial aid optimization. Even though it really wasn't until almost halfway, like the midpoint of the recruiting season, so this would have been in 24 for the incoming class of 25, that we flipped our market positioning from affordability to pledge. And we just did some really quick modeling from a financial aid standpoint, our optimization with our partners to make sure it fit into the budget. We made a little bit of a gamble, made a pitch right to the president, and he was willing to take a slight risk in that we weren't going to blow up our institutional aid budget, but then also right tying it back into our mission and who we serve, being an institution, very proud institution of access, and 51% of our current student body is first generation. So this is really important to, walk the talk in so many words. Going back, you mentioned at the very top of our recording the fact that over the past 3 fiscal years, not only have we had success increasing enrollments due in large part to the Roosevelt Pledge program, we've also been able to maintain, slightly decrease our discount rate and increase net tuition revenue. For the Pledge program in particular, when we looked at the modeling and the outcomes, that group alone generated 4.2 million more in revenue for the university than the year before.
That's amazing. It is very rare to find strategies that hit all of those points today to
Yeah.
increase headcount while also getting more money coming in, more revenue coming in. It's not easy today. So kudos to all of you. And I really think the recipe here has been the combination, like you're saying, it's financial aid strategy, enrollment strategy, and institutional mission all working together. It's not just financial aid strategy over here, right? It's all of the pieces working together as one.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And marketing too,
Yeah.
and branding and positioning. So it is a collaborative effort. And then now I've talked quite a bit about outcomes, a little bit about persistence, retention. That piece really has come into play this year. So it's really been an exercise in collaboration across many departments to make this a successful program for our students.
Well, we have a lot of marketers that listen in to this podcast. So I'm going to ask you about how you're marketing the Roosevelt Pledge in just a second. But also, I know that probably everyone's wondering who you work with on your aid optimization. So go ahead and
That's
give them a
true.
shout out.
Yes, it doesn't need to be a secret. EAB,
Great.
EAB.
Great.
Yes, yeah. They've been
Thank you.
our
'Cause
partners
I know
for
when we shout out consultants and partners that are helping us on something great, everyone's wondering, right? It's the question that's
yes,
on their mind.
yes, yes. And then at the same time, Allison, I should also give a shout out to our partners who you work with as well at Market View,
Market view. Yeah.
uh, because their dashboards and just real time analytics and insights have greatly informed our strategy, like real time, especially as we move into yield season.
Yeah, well, I have to imagine the competitor piece that you mentioned earlier, understanding what your competitors were getting in certain audiences, that's market view. That's where market view shines, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
they do. Yeah, yeah, and that's been a really powerful tool. Gonna be talking actually, soon with Market View on a webinar just on the topic of communicating with stakeholders. That's a key piece, like being able to talk about how we're performing as compared to our cohorts.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't say enough good things either. But let's tell everyone about the marketing. So tell us from a marketing perspective, how are you getting the pledge out there? Where does it show up in the prospective student journey?
At the onset, it was primarily with applicants, right? Rising seniors, again, because we launched
Where you were with
mid-cycle.
where you were in yeah, where you were in
Yes,
cycle. Yep.
yes. It lives very prominently on our webpage. It's usually typically it should be on our homepage if it's not already. So students are becoming aware of the program much earlier in their high school journey. I've been talking with our financial aid leads this week, and like we're getting so many phone calls from parents and families about the pledge program, just wanting to know more about it and if they're eligible. So we're doing quite a bit more concentrated work early on, right? Inquiry stage, prospect stage. Most of it is through communications, web, emails, communications. But this time of year, we start to be much more proactive around outreach as well. We have hired a dedicated financial aid counselor who will work specifically with students who have
Oh,
been
wow. That's
accepted into the
smart.
pledge program to make individual outreach with those students if they're interested in counseling, understanding a little bit more about their package, especially wanting to be transparent about the fact that the pledge program does not include housing. So wanting to be very upfront, make sure families understand that piece. And the other new thing that we've added, this is a bit separate from marketing, but we do add this into our communications at this time of the year, is student success coaches. So we've hired 3, and I believe we'll be maybe adding at least one more student success coaches who are specifically responsible for working with this student population throughout the academic year and monitoring various,
Wow.
yeah, key academic performance indicators, I guess you not or academic. Yeah, I guess you could say that academic.
Wow. This is so much more than marketing. Truly, because you have even invested in the student experience aspect of it for these particular students. So no wonder you're having such great retention success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're really proud of that. Again, if you go to roosevelt.edu, the pledge should be right on our homepage. I mean, our brand team has done really excellent work in terms of putting this front and center and aligning it with our brand and helping us to position the program in a way
Well,
that resonates.
I am so interested to see what happens for fall 2026
Yeah.
because it sounds like this is your first class that it's existed for a full cycle, because I think of full cycle as they start as sophomores in high school when they're first starting to
Yes.
think and get interested in college. So it's always, 2 years, at least 2 years, sometimes 3 years prior to the year you're actually recruiting in. So because of when you started it, right? This is the first class. The students that you're recruiting right now into this pledge idea, they were sophomores in high school when you launched. So you've got a full sort of cycle where you've been able to integrate it into the communications and everything that they've been receiving from day one. So it'll be so interesting to see what happens this year versus your other 2 years. You've already had great success, but now you have probably more volume of students who
We do.
qualify for it this year, right?
Yes, we do. It's
Yeah.
holding, when I looked just this morning, and I've been monitoring obviously as we move through the weeks, but right now we're holding about the same year over year in terms of applications and number of deposited students, and in part that could be due to the GPA piece
Oh,
that
right.
we put into
You
play.
added something that would
Yes.
suppress some of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
actually holding between that and the demographics, holding is up at this
Yes.
moment. I would say, Nicole.
Right,
Right.
especially in Illinois, where
Yeah.
like one of the top two states where we're going to be hit the hardest with the demographic
Yeah.
decline. 29% is the number I saw last. But yeah, so we're really excited about the fall. The other deadline that we have in place is students need to have their FAFSAs on
Mhm.
file with us by March 15th in order to be
Yeah.
considered.
Yeah. That
So
makes sense. You need time to be able to process it and then talk with these students, right? It
yes,
doesn't serve them
yes,
very well if they're getting their FAFSA in on April 20th,
yeah,
right?
no, exactly,
They need
exactly.
to sort of get onboarded. All
Yes.
right. My last question, Nicole, is if another institution wanted to launch something similar, some kind of affordability guarantee, something around pricing, what would you tell them? What have you learned that you would want everyone to understand?
I would say at the onset, be sure to partner if you don't have a financial aid optimization firm like EAB, making sure you're working closely with your financial aid leads, with institutional research, just taking a solid look right at your institutional aid budget, do some modeling just to see what the implications of that would be, because most likely you will drive enrollment increases with a program like that, which is what we want as enrollment leaders. But then we also need to be accountable to institutional aid budgets and conscientious of discount rates, net tuition revenue. And then second to that, right, pull in your marketing team leads and take a look at the clearinghouse data. Get a good understanding of what's happening in your competitive landscape. What are they marketing right now? What are their differentiators in the marketplace? That was something that also really led us to reposition again our broad affordability campaign into the Roosevelt Pledge, something that can make your university distinct in the marketplace.
Well, we talk on a lot of episodes over the years on this podcast about the sea of sameness. So, Nicole, thanks for bringing to us an idea that allows Roosevelt to actually stand out in the market among the audience that you're trying to reach. Kudos to all of you.
Oh, thank you, Allison. This has really been a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about the Roosevelt Pledge, something we're very proud of at Roosevelt.
I'm so glad. And if you were listening and you think someone else would be interested in hearing about this episode, please make sure to share it. And don't forget to recommend the episode wherever you're listening. Until next time.